Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Slant 3D podcast, the show about 3D printing and our place inside the industry. Today, we're going to be talking about China's AM investment dropping by 50%, additive manufacturing strategies, Icon raises millions of dollars, and then finishing it up on how to read a book and talking about scaling up Tangled and Teleport. Also, where all of our 3D models are going. The secret will be revealed. But before that, let's go ahead and pay the bills. This episode is brought to you by Slant 3D Teleport. Teleport allows you to plug your e-commerce store directly into our giant 3D printing farms. Whether you're selling 3D printed items on Etsy, Amazon, TikTok Shop, all you have to do is connect them straight into Teleport and then upload the models for your items. And then when a customer orders a 3D printed product from you, we will print it and ship it directly to them for you. Teleport has recently been expanded with third-party parts, including light pucks, wireless chargers, and all sorts of other items so that you can include the 3D print and the third-party parts along with it. So check out Teleport at slantpod.com or link down in the description. Okay, 3D printing news. Alrighty then. So China's AM investment dropped 50% in 2024. So this is per 3dprint.com. China's 3D printing sector saw a striking shift in 2024. According to data from Nanjing, talking additive manufacturing, funding in China dropped by 50%. $530 million across 32 deals. This figure is contrasted against the $3.4 billion raised by 3D printing companies outside of China. Okay. So this is sort of an interesting thing. The charts are interesting. I actually went over to the Nanjing article and read it myself. There is, yes, it's down to $500 million, but the 32 deals that they reference are of companies that I am not familiar with at all. Now, to be fair, I am not sure how many of these companies are like the owners of our actual the companies that you may know. So like, I don't know if there is a Chinese name for Creality that doesn't appear inside of the list, and Creality might be raising money. But of the functions that all of those companies do, all of them appear to be metal 3D printing companies. So it looks like predominantly industrial and metal 3D printing companies are where the $500 million went to for this raise. Which means that they're excluding companies such as Bamboo, who I am almost certain raised money last year. They almost certainly had to in order to just scale up what they were doing and all of this stuff. So I'm not sure if that research is actually accurate. Now, if I presume that it is correct, if I presume that the Chinese market went from $1 billion of investment down to half $500 million of investment, why would that occur? Couple of reasons. Number one, 3D printing just is not really hit and has not contributed significantly to the manufacturing ecosystem of the country. Even the rumors of like the Apple iWatch getting 3D printed parts and that kind of stuff, while those have been confirmed, we haven't really seen if it's gone into mass production, and it was also for the iWatch Pro or whatever they have. So the scale of it isn't really relevant to where it would create significant investment returns. So, since 3D printing has not scaled up and has not achieved the promises that it has targeted over time, why would they continue to invest in it? That's kind of the question. Now, of course, consumer products, Bamboo has done much to expand the consumer 3D printing market. Additionally, it has also whacked the industrial 3D printing market. So, it's an interesting sort of time. I'm not certain that the investment has actually dropped. I think that might be incorrect data. But if it has, it's kind of justifiable. So there was one other note, one other carve out that I pulled out. According to a relevant survey data in the first half of 2024, the total amount of investment in the entire domestic venture capital market has decreased by about 30% year on year. And the number and amount of investment have also declined by nearly 40%. This is in addition to it. So the 3D printing market could be starved because since interest rates around the world and inflation have whacked venture capital, which is very sensitive to this, venture capital is down. Venture capital is down inside the States also. And things that are way more shiny, like AI, have sucked away money that might have gone to 3D printing companies. So it's kind of a situation of like 5 and 10% hits that compiled into a 50% hit overall. Oh, also, by the way, I'm going to add a piece of news to this that we weren't going to talk about initially. Etsy. Etsy is relevant to us because a lot of teleport users sell on Etsy. Etsy released fourth quarter numbers for last year, and they said that overall their actual revenue was down 8.6%, I believe. A 10% drop for an e-commerce marketplace is a big hit. Etsy had been about flat the year before because they were coming off of COVID highs, but to do another 10% hit is brutal. And Etsy lost 10% of their stock market value or market capitalization due to that. Etsy's in a tough spot. They're not able to turn into a giant e-commerce seller the way Amazon does because they're handmade and they have to maintain that branding. But branding doesn't scale, or handmade doesn't scale up, and also doesn't help with them all. And some people down in the comments may comment about how Etsy has become more difficult to work with. I don't think so. I think Etsy still, the fees that they take, Etsy takes approximately cumulatively about 8% in like payment processing fees. You get to use their platform. They're taking 8% of your sale. And then you can pay them additional marketing spend, which is normal on any sort of thing. And generally, if you're selling an item, you should budget 25% for marketing spend. So Etsy is not being egregious about the number of fees they're taking in the context of e-commerce. However, their platform, even though it's meant to be easy to use, and it is much easier to sell on Etsy than many other places. Etsy, for the amount of reach that they give you. Etsy does have weirdness once in a while to where their content moderation and their flagging of stores and that kind of thing is wildly unreliable. So that's just kind of a note for everybody. I think selling on Etsy is still a really good idea. If you have an item, Etsy is the easiest, lowest hanging fruit because you get it in front of an audience that is interested. It gets you into Google search and you're able to buy ads, which are very well distributed around. And yes, they take a 10% fee. If your product is priced so low that you cannot afford payment processing fees of 8%, your product is too cheap. That's just the truth. So it's very easy on Etsy to be in the handmade mode where it's like, oh, it's my labor. This is how much the raw materials cost. That is not how to price. 3 times whatever your cost of goods is. That is the minimum price that you should be selling an item for so that you can sustain 1 and 2% variations in payment processing and that kind of thing. And it's not a problem. And that way Etsy can make a living and you can make a really good living. If everybody's trying to nickel and dime everybody, then everybody dies. So make sure that you're pricing appropriately so that everybody can flourish. Okay, next piece of news, Additive Manufacturing Strategies 2025. Again, 3dprint.com. So the Additive Manufacturing conference, powwow, I don't know. It's not like a full conference, but it kind of is. Happened a week or so ago. And the general sentiment around it was 3D printing has been overhyped. We're now entering a period of higher stability to where we're going to design very real applications and we're going to follow the data and we're going to build what customers need as opposed to making another box and hoping people buy it. Cool, great, fine. It's really bad that the 3D printing industry has no aspiration anymore because this is why companies like Bamboo can come in and sweep everybody. Literally almost every time there's a consensus, if there is a consensus in an industry, if everybody's going right, you really should go left. And the fact that there is this amount of complacency about what the industry is able to do, like everybody's been beat down so much over the last 10 years. They think, oh, this is where we are, we got to stay in our place. Personally, I think that's stupid. 3D printing has so massive amounts to run, and we can replace injection molding, and it is a better way to make everything. The problem with the industry is the industry has not had the cojones to scale up and really make it happen, while also understanding what the limitations are. They say, oh, we're going to be injection molding. Well, no, 3D printing will never be injection molding. Never, ever will it be injection molding. It will never have the same part qualities as injection molding, ever. But 3D printing can make as many parts as injection molding and can create different business models that didn't exist outside of injection molding. So the idea that we should somehow be conservative about, 3D printing should kind of stay in our lane and find really specific niches, sure, that's true, but then keep on going. Our personal philosophy is we're going to build somewhere between 5 and 10 more giant 3D print farms over the next couple of years. And that's pretty definitely going to happen at this point. So no, I'm not conservative about this at all. That all being said, back to what was said at the show. Industries like the silencer market have really taken off, especially as everybody focuses on metal 3D printing and regular printing in general. Silencers have geometry requirements and that kind of thing to where the firearms market, which also has tremendous margins, is able to afford expensive 3D printed parts, and 3D printed parts are able to deliver a lot of value. So that's a great place to be. Everybody's known that for 5 or 10 years. There was kind of a final carve out here. I'm just going to read verbatim. We find ourselves in a middle ground, trying to automate artisanal production, a challenge we've faced for over a decade. However, advancements in machine software and processes are steadily improving in parallel. Many materials companies have come and gone without delivering real cost savings to operators, but perhaps the industry can find ways to reduce costs independently. Okay, that's all true, and that's also incorrect. Many materials companies have come and gone without delivering real cost savings for operators. Materials has always been a problem in 3D printing, mainly because no one has ever tried to pursue cost savings. We're going to talk about this in Tangled here as we get a little bit later about how we got it down to $10 per kilogram and how we can go a little bit further and keep on going. But yes, materials companies have never been interested in reducing cost. If they were, they would have reduced their selection and increased their production volume. They would have picked a material and bet on that material. But anyhow, okay. So as far as the industry can find ways to reduce costs independently, yeah, literally, if you're in a manufacturing industry, you look at what the cost to dig the rock out of the ground is. And whatever more expensive you are than that, that is how inefficient your manufacturing process is. Really, like no joke. You should only have material and energy, and those are your basest cost of components. If you have the material in a steel screw and that steel screw costs $200, but it's made with 50 cents of steel, you have a problem there where that's either really special or it's the last screw on the planet or whatever it was. And it's a very simple thing to optimize around. The 3D printing industry doesn't do this because, quite frankly, we've been used to prototyping for forever, so everybody's used to really high margins. Okay, next piece of news. Icon secures $56 million amid construction 3D printing sector's growing pains per 3dprint.com. Austin-based company just closed a Series C with Northwest Ventures and Tiger Capital. Tiger had previously done a round with them. The company plans to raise up to $75 million in additional funding. The investment marks the latest infusion. And it has raised over $500 million to date. However, Icon has not disclosed their new valuation. I think they were valued, I believe, like $20 billion or so. Like Icon was really, really expensive there for a good long period of time. They say the funding will primarily support the development of Phoenix, Icon's line of multi-story 3D printers, which the company aims to put in the hands of builders. Last little note on this, because of the firm's recent and previous layoffs, we can likely assume that the investment has been an essential one to keep the company going. As impressive of the... Okay. Icon may be finding that its current model as a builder isn't enough to generate revenues. In return, it's hoping that selling hardware would be the best way to go. It's such a terrible decision. Okay, that's editorialized. I'm going to editorialize some more. Icon's raised $56 million. They've done it, yes, to get a bridge through into the next season so they can keep on rolling here. They must have some future to go. They're saying that multi-story printers are the things they're going to work on. That's ridiculous. They are based in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is the home of the single-story home. That's what they build down there. Multi-story expansions happen kind of on the regular, but Texas, just from the climate and from the culture and everything else, builds single-story homes. And there's a housing shortage right now of whatever, 250,000 houses or something inside of the states that are meant for single-family homes. They don't need to be multi-story because that's too expensive right now too. Icon is not getting the demand for their houses that they need. This is me talking. This is not the article or Icon or anybody else. This is me talking. If Icon is not building houses like crazy, it's because nobody wants their houses. Or there's some dirty secret here that they're subsidizing. But with $56 million, you can subsidize about 50 houses, maybe 100 houses. That is not profitable. So Icon is wanting to build houses for people. And they have deals with a number of builders all over the place who, not Lennar, yeah, maybe it was Lennar, who was building houses and they were partnering with. But either people don't like the houses or they're not building them fast enough or cost effectively enough. The idea that they're expanding their technology, that, oh, we're making single story houses, but now we're going to go to double story because so many more people want those. I doubt it. I very much doubt that. I don't have the data on the housing market right now, but I'm pretty sure cheap single-level homes in Texas are in higher demand than multi-story homes. So they're diversifying in order to show that they're doing something, but that's not going to increase their sales. I think it's a fundamental management mistake. They should be doubling down on the single-story home and figuring out how to either lower the cost of them or speed up the delivery of them so that they have a demonstrable win over everybody else. I don't think consumers have a problem with the houses. I don't think anybody cares about the 3D printed layer lines. I'm going to bet that the houses are not really that much more cost effective than wood prop-up houses, and they have not created enough labor savings to where it's a 10x value add over what anybody else is doing. 3D printed houses have a leg to stand on, but again, it's kind of this typical situation. If this editorialization is correct, they want to sell the machine rather than selling the houses. That is ridiculous. That is demonstrably the wrong model, as the entire industry has shown, and every industry before that. You want a past example? Injection molding. Injection molding, the only people who make money in that are the injection molding services. And they don't make any money because it's all commoditized there too. But the machine builders definitely aren't making any money. So anyhow, it's Icon's in a tough spot. If I was taking a guess, I'm not going to take a guess about their future on it. I run a 3D printing startup. I don't need anybody else piling on. Okay. All right. Company updates. Tangled. How to scale up Tangled. We've been having this discussion over the last few weeks. We've scaled up Tangled a ton. So like obviously Tangled is $10 a spool right now. And we have the memberships, and we're going through the memberships and that kind of stuff. It's available. And yeah, right now, member orders are shipping in a couple of days or so. Non-member orders ship when they ship, and there's capacity available. I'm sorry. The non-member orders are effectively a pre-order or a batch order, just like before. But we're keeping up with that. We've had a whole bunch of people go out sick here this last week. So fulfillment has been a little bit tough because literally we had a whole mess of the team just all get the flu on the same couple of days. And I don't think there was a concert in town, so I don't think they all just partied off someplace. Just everybody got sick. We had a weather change here, so everybody got sick. Caused some delays in our production schedules. But scaling up Tangled. So whenever trying to scale up a production process, you start with the bottlenecks. What is the primary slow up factor right at the moment? For us, the primary slowing factor are the extruders themselves. So 3D printer filament extruders are not very fast because filament is in this weird area where it's kind of a lot of material that has to be precise. It's not weed whacker wire. It has to be precise, but you have to move a lot of it. And it's a cord, so it's thick. This is challenging because if we extruded filament, if we had a die size this big around and we're extruding 25 miles an hour, the problem is when you extrude that large, you have to pull it down to the 1.75. going from this down to that is basically impossible because you have too much thermal contraction and that kind of stuff to where the filament would be garbage when it got to the other end. You can go up to maybe a 3 millimeter die and then die it down. You basically pull it through multiple dies as it's cooling, and then that'll pull it down to 175. That's doable, but now you need longer water channels. Ultimately, I would like to just run our extruders faster, which means that you have to heat it up really fast. And in order to heat it up really fast, you have to have it at a very high heat, which is great while it's running, but because it can extrude out very quickly. But even then, most extruders can't extrude very fast because you can only push so much fluid through a tiny die hole, and then once it comes out, it has to cool back down. So you have this really weird kind of thermal energy problem where you have to rapidly heat it without changing its material properties, which things like PLA are quite sensitive to the temperature of processing. So even if we were going really fast at a high temperature, now we've created whatever different type of PLA. And then if for some reason the extruder stops or pauses or whatever else it was, we're either purging a ton of stuff out onto the ground, or it's you leave it inside of the bore at a very high heat where it starts cooking. And now you have problems of contamination or carbonization or whatever else it was, or over liquefaction, to where you have to purge the whole thing and can't get it restarted. The other way of scaling up extrusion is to have a die with 5 holes in it. That's challenging because you now have to pluck these 5 holes, put them into 5 cooling channels, and run them all out, keeping them separated and making sure they never tangled. And stringing that the first time is really, really hard because we're a smaller operation. We'll get there one of these days. But so extrusion as the bottleneck, in order to fix it, to get multiple die holes, you have multiple extruders. And we have multiple extruders. Here's the thing. Now on the other end, you have to spool it. Now, do you go directly onto a spool, or do you spool onto large spools and then spool down? There's no problem. We spool onto large spools and then we spool down to the 3 kg, 1 kg. Because the large spool is the poor man's like automation, basically. You can have a large spool for 8 hours without anybody looking at it, and the extruder can run. And that's handy. But the problem is that now we cannot make those spooling spools big enough because the spools we use fill up in about 4 hours. But we can't go bigger because then you're having to either manhandle them around or build a piece of machinery to move the spool around so nobody breaks their back. There's also our spooling winders themselves can't support a larger diameter spool. You can't make the spool wider because then it gets heavier without giving more leverage for unspooling. So there's all of these factors around scaling up Tangled. Ultimately, what we want to get to is just a big spool. And right now we're designing building a new spooling machine that will be able to spool up 100 kilograms of material at a time onto a single spool. And then we'll figure out how to unspool it down the line. But that giant spooler will allow us to be much more efficient because right now, when we run extrusion, we run 24 hours because you have to. If you stop the extruder and then start back up, it creates all kinds of new problems of purging and loading and waste and so on and so forth, and just the time. You have to wait for the thing to heat up, and then you string it and blah, 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 all terrible things. Anyway, so where was I going with that? We're making the great big spool. That will allow us to run 24/7 without having it be attended. The extruders that we operate and the way we operate them are stupidly reliable once they're started. So they can go without anybody looking at them. And quite frankly, we could maybe just create like a ChatGPT camera spy or something that would email us if it saw that filament wasn't coming through or something like that, or if it suddenly deviated. So with that larger spooler, we will be able to run 24/7 without stopping and without incurring a human toll. That will be a big unlock around efficiency. Because right now you have to have an attendant, an extrusion line operator present pretty much the whole time it's running. And that's just really tough on folks to have to run a night shift and that kind of thing. We're also in an area where there's not a lot of folks to run night shifts, so it's just challenging that way. But Tangled, we're working to scale up the extrusion bottleneck. If the extruders can run 24/7, they can run 24/7, store up thousands of pounds of filament, and then that filament can be spooled down as quickly as necessary. And then spooling, we can make basically as fast as we want to. We can either get more winders, get more people, or get some more automated winders, which exist to get it all done. So the cost of producing Tangled will hit another unlock here fairly soon. We also worked a deal recently. And yeah, I will tell folk about this. We recently bought about 50 pallets of extrusion beads. And in that deal, we got it sourced quite affordably, which may get passed on or may not. It basically allows us to just kind of put Teleport into, or Tangled into profitability. And we also have to get those processed and get the rest of it rolling also. Because when you have that many pallets, now you have a problem of warehousing and storage because they take up a lot of square footage. So that is now a cost that comes back in. So the material was cheaper, but now we're storing it, which adds cost to material very quickly. And people don't always think about those downstream impacts of it. But like warehousing cost is not free. And we have a fairly dense factory as it is right now. And these things take up a ton of space. So we're going to make a whole bunch of filament. But the Tangled has been scaling up enough to justify that, as well as the rest of the operation. So we think it'll be fine. But we'll probably do a video around that material here in a little bit, just because it's kind of cool. And yeah, do an update on Tangled, because we literally just reorganized the extrusion part of the factory. So that's more efficient, laid out. We've been moving extruders around for the last week or so since we finished up last batch, and we're getting them back online. But yeah, to scale up Tangled even more. The Tangled assembly line right now is actually coming together and is pretty sick. Okay, Teleport. Okay, so in Teleport, very soon there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff starting to break loose inside of Teleport, both features and otherwise. Things like the refund feature, third-party components, some additional tiers to the subscription potentially. But yeah, Teleport will be being enabled more. But I want to say that like our main focus with Teleport and with the service in general is faster shipping. Faster shipping is enabled by being closer to the customer and having more machines. We keep on adding more machines and redeploying more capacity to try to Teleport all the time. But it looks like here in the next 2 months, we will have another factory coming online here inside the States that will probably shave about a day off of Teleport processing time. Maybe even more. It may get us back down below 2 days of processing for Teleport. Right here in the short term, we have started subsidizing shipping. This is one of the changes to Teleport. Teleport will probably be going to a flat rate shipping rate for all orders. So like you want to ship international, here's the cost. You want to ship in the US, here's the cost. If you want to ship under 1 pound, here's the cost. Because right now it's auto-calculated based on what the carriers give us. And I don't like that because the carriers have their own walk-a-do and they move with the seasons and there's no way to business model around that. So since everybody uses Teleport, we're going to basically take control of the shipping. We'll deal with the fluctuations in the back-end cost, and then shipping will be a flat rate for users, which will simplify it radically. And allows us to make shipping a point of optimization for ourselves, where we're dealing with the carriers and figuring out how to ship faster. And as we build more factories, that reduces our cost of shipping and all the rest of it. And that just makes it really stable for users. And we deal with all the mess in the background. So that's what we want to do here. So yeah, a lot of changes coming to Teleport, likely flat rate shipping, faster shipping, and some other options. Okay, so that'll be that. Second factory coming up. Cool. All right. Content. With content, one of the things that I want to do is increase the amount of Q&A. And I don't want to do it in chats. I do want to do it live here. Now, we'll probably be bringing back the live streams here fairly soon. But I'd like to do kind of like a comments reacts inside of podcast. So literally right now, if you have questions about anything, please put them in the comments of this podcast. And if we get enough, We will have a question section in podcast next week, and then the following week, and so on and so forth, where we will mine comments from the videos and everything else and put them into podcast. Okay. There'll be that. Oh, also, side note on this. This was a discussion that we had. Myself and the team, obviously, we have done 3D printing e-commerce for 5 to 7 years. We've built Etsy stores, Amazon stores, eBay stores, all that stuff that were internal to Slant 3D, that were like white label brands that we created. And of course, right now we interact with a lot of sellers. So we have a lot of insight about how this stuff works and what goes well. Would you guys be interested in a class or like one-on-one bookings or something like that? I think we'll have a Google Doc link down in the bottom to where you can sign up. But basically like a consultation service or something like that, to where it's like, okay, yeah, you can book an hour and you can, with me, and you can ask me any question that you want. Here's the thing, guys, quite frankly, this type of a thing won't be cheap. It won't be $5 an hour or something like that, because it's just too much of a time sink. We're considering it right now. We're not definitely going to do that, but would you be interested? It might be a couple $100. It might be $500, but some sort of consultation service to where we go through, we revamp your seller account and show you how to redesign your files and just do a full consultation and a deep dive there. The reason we do this YouTube channel is so that that stuff is free as much as possible. And by helping 1,000 people, more generically, everybody's able to get it for free. But if you want like really, really targeted insight and advice and that kind of stuff, would you guys be interested in that? Let me know. And yeah, we'll probably put a Google Doc down below to serve as a sign-up form for it, so that we know how many people are interested in it. But yeah, that's a thing we were discussing. Like, should we create a paid class or a paid consultation or something like that that deep dives on certain things that people need? Or another thing we might do is just like a group Zoom meeting or something. I don't know what all. Something like that. Open to ideas about it. But to request, comment down below if there's questions that you want answered on these podcasts. And let us know if you'd be interested in a class or consultation service. Okay. Last but certainly not least. Oh my goodness, I just killed my pen. The 3D models. So, a lot of you have watched this channel for a while. We have quite a few 3D models come through. 3D models, we have been modeling dozens, hundreds of models over the last couple of years or so, that we have never really released. We don't release very many of our models. We've tried it a little bit, but it's too much hassle. We are doing it. So, we've had a designer who's worked with us for a while now, who is based in France, who has helped out with videos and helps out with design internally and that kind of stuff. Great designer, Paul. All of these models we've collected up, and Paul was interested in setting up basically a file modeling service. So we decided that, you know what? All of these models, it would be great if they're distributed. We don't have time in distributing them right now. We have to focus on teleport. We shouldn't be doing file generation or subscriptions. So we partnered with Paul, and Paul has set up a Things page called 3D Sanctuary, which will contain Slant 3D files and Slant 3D approved files. We're endorsing it, and we're putting our files up over there. So if you've seen any 3D models on videos, they will end up going over there. There'll be resources for teleport, and then more designs into the future that Paul will continue to create. And Paul is just a really exceptional designer who's able to create really, really good 3D printable models that teach good engineering design and are just good models. It's releasing right now. It's available right now. There should be 10 models publicly available right now, or available with membership. And there will be a commercial license for it as well. So we're going to start working with him in a collaboration to do models for teleport, sellable models. This is the goal of it. Well-engineered and sellable 3D printed models that are not all fidget dragons, because people need something else. So a lot of the designs you'll see on these videos will be available over there. Go ahead and go sign up over there. We're doing this announcement is like a demonstration and a release that we're releasing 3D models. So check out 3D Sanctuary. Link is down in the bio, and you can trust them. They're good models. They're the models that we have been using. They're very well designed. Demonstrations of hinges, all those kinds of things will be available over there, and we'll continue to do it over time. So yeah, we're really excited about that, to be able to turn our 3D models loose. And any new models that Paul creates, I'm sure will be very, very good. So that is over on Fangs 3D Sanctuary in partnership with Slant 3D is now available. Okay. Okay, how to read a book. So this came up recently because I was talking with some friends. I'm going to grab this book because it's a perfect example. Many people don't know how to read. They're intimidated by it and scared by it and that kind of stuff. And it's because people don't know how to read. There's a lot of bad habits that you learn in high school and college that are taught by teachers. They're just wrong. But books... The reason this topic came up is I've been discussing reading with other people, and I say, like, are you a reader? And they say, no, not really. It's tough to get started, and it's a big old thick book or whatever else it was. I'm like, I get that. And then I've also had, I have a bit of a library myself because I am a reader, and people will look at my bookshelves and say, have you read all of these games? And that is the wrong question. The point of a library is not to have read all the books. The point of the library is to be kind of a personal internet and personal reference section. They are books that I want to have available so that knowledge is available if it becomes important. And so that when I feel like exploring, I can explore. And there's always fresh ground to be explored. That is the reason for a library. The reason most people read books wrong is because people read books as a job rather than as entertainment. And everybody's like, well, I don't enjoy books or whatever else it was. I get that. Again, don't misconstrue this. Entertainment means that you own it and you get to do what you want. Many people think that reading is meant to be the author directing you through their life. That is not what this format is for. Books are your thing. You own it. This is my book. I am allowed to write in it, scribble in it, do whatever I want. Stupid pen broken again. Write in it, do whatever I want. I'm allowed to do that because it's my book. It's my property. I can graffiti it. I'm allowed to dog-ear the pages, which I do all the time. I can tear out a page and post it on the wall. I can do whatever I want. Many people think books are something to be sacred. Something that should be protected and venerated on the wall under some sort of piece of artwork. No, they are not. They are a piece of property, and they're a thing to be played with and interacted with. So first of all, don't be scared of books. They're not special things. They're your thing. Mess with them. Do whatever you want to them. So first of all, don't be scared of books. They're yours. You own it. If you're borrowing a book, different story. Again, libraries teach this bad habit that they should be venerated. They're not. Write in them. Do as much as you want. Books right now, paperback books cost $5. Get a pile of them. But then the art of reading itself. Many people think that a book starts at the beginning and ends at the end. And if you stop somewhere along that line, you've made a mistake or you failed. This thickness is not a progress bar. That is storage of memory. You would not download a gigabyte of video and watch 2 minutes and then say, oh, I didn't finish the video and feel bad about it. This is what this is. This is simply a means of storage. This is not a grade. You did not fail if you only went that far. That's another thing. You don't have to finish books. Books don't have to be finished. Go for as long as it's useful to you or entertaining to you. And quite frankly, if the author cannot maintain your attention in the first 10 books, lose it. You don't need it. That is the author's job. They spent a lot of time putting that together. If they can't structure it well and have 10 editors go through and fix it for them, then it wasn't a good book. Also, by the way, you can judge authors like that too. Guys who write 10 words when you only need one are idiots, and they shouldn't do it. This is, by the way, I'm going to use this as an example. Fooled by Randomness, Nicholas Taleb, he talks about this, like reading and libraries and that kind of stuff, which is why I pulled him. But his books are also fantastically dense. He has a confession in one of these. I think it might be Fooled by Randomness. He says, I make the point in the first 10 pages. The whole rest of the book is justification, substantiation, and examples. But if you're able to get the concept and agree with me in the first 10 pages or disagree with me in the first 10 pages, the rest of it is not useful because that's just adding color. That is for an informational kind of philosophy book. That is true. Much of books is filler and fluff to fill out the pages. There's very few authors who can make every page worth reading. There's very few books that are that good. This is one, by the way. I recommend reading it cover to cover. The Bible is another. The Bible is very philosophically dense. A lot of philosophy is really philosophically dense to where you want to read every part of it because it all adds to it. But anyhow, so you don't have to read the whole thing. You also, if you're going through pages, you don't have to read the entire page. You're allowed to skim. Skimming is perfectly okay. You can read the headings all the way through the book. You can look at the table of contents and say, that chapter is interesting, I'm going to read it, and read it out of order. You can read the ending of the story if you want to. That's okay. I think people have trouble reading because it seems like an intimidating requirement. It seems academic and necessary to start at the beginning, finish at the end, read it all, every word, and suffer through it. That's supposed to be part of it. It's not. This is a piece of your property. There are a bunch of ideas stored in this storage. Get to the spot that interests you, read that, move back to the beginning, move over here, and this kind of stuff. So I really enjoy reading because it's a hobby and it's an adventure and there is no pressure with it at all. I don't have to finish the book. I'm going to read what I'm interested in. And I'll read 10 pages of this and then I'll switch to another book and read 20 pages of that. Or I'll read one book for 4 hours, cover to cover in a day, whatever it happens to be. People put books on too high of a horse. They are one of the oldest forms of media and smut and porn and everything else. There is nothing high class about books historically. Dime store novels, magazines, all this stuff. The written word, once the Gutenberg press came out, became just like short form video today. Just stuff to rot your brain. The books have been perceived as becoming more academic, especially, the thicker the book. Well, you must have thick glasses to match. No, books are just a form of media. Now, I'll admit that in the modern world, for all you youngsters out there, it's tough to sit down and read a book for long form because TikTok is better. That's okay. There is nothing wrong with video content because most people read at the speed that people talk. So why not listen to people talk? The content is there and the information is available. The value of books, the reason I recommend that people read is because, number one, this author spent probably multiple years writing this set of thoughts down. So they should be distilled and very dense. As compared to like videos, especially short form, where it's like the first pass or a rapidly written script or something else to where there's a nugget in there, but not every part of it is useful. So you're getting a lot of noise to signal. Whereas a book is a distilled set of experiences and expertise to where you get really, really dense information, really contextualized, and it's actually faster than like Googling it very often. My primary use for books is to break myself out of rhythms. If I'm fighting with a really particular problem, I will go read a book because, number one, it's very meditative. It puts me in a really good state where I'm just calmed down and I'm not allowed to be distracted by other stuff. So my brain cools. And very often within the act of reading the book, the author will put something in context to where you find a solution or the nugget that you stumble upon that you otherwise would not have stumbled upon. Because the algorithms show you what you want to hear. The author tells you what you need to hear. So that is just terribly useful. So I just wanted to kind of have this small soapbox moment about how to read. Don't be intimidated by books. You don't have to read by all of them. They are just a form of media. They are not some requirement. You're allowed to buy a book and never read it. That's possible. It's okay to put them on the shelf and never read them. You're allowed to. Most people with books haven't read them all. And that's part of the game if you're a book person. But, and you do not have to read it in order or right, and you do not have to protect it or defend it. You can write in it, you can crease it, you can abuse it. It is your thing. Do whatever you want with it. There is nobody imparting it on you. The author's ideas you're allowed to agree or disagree with. You can skip over parts. You can read it out of context. Do what makes you feel comfortable with them. Don't do what the expectation is. I think this is what stops people from reading. People believe that you have to be in a leather high-backed chair with a fire burning and a dog at your feet or something in order to read a book. You must read for 5 hours at a time. No. You're allowed to read for 5 minutes at a time from whatever book you want, whenever you feel like, doing it however you want. But the value of it is that it's really, really distilled human thought that you get access to in paper for very free. It's odd that ebooks are more expensive now. So I recommend reading. I highly recommend reading. It's a really good thing. But if it seems challenging, get rid of that. It doesn't have to be. It's like going for a walk. Most people think reading a book is going to the gym and going for a run. No, treat it like going for a walk. Walk until you're bored and come back. That's okay. There's no requirement for it. And no reader would ever say, oh, you skimmed that book? Oh, pish tosh or whatever. Well, some of them would, but most real readers, and I shouldn't say that. I'm turning it into a classist thing again. Nobody will care how much of it you read or not, so long as you got the nuggets of information from it. So that's my little soapbox moment on that. That's a discussion topic for this week. This was a longer podcast than I thought because we did a lot of news, but it was a good podcast, I think. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Comment down below any questions that you want us to answer in next week's podcast. We will cover them and shout everybody out, and then let us know if you want to do like a class and check out any of the 3D models out there. Have a great day, everybody.